Traumatized.
And I know that I don't have to mess with Jose as well. That was my
Important
biggest
life
lesson
lessons,
learned.
bro.
Life
Important life
lessons.
lessons.
Yeah. How's everyone doing? NDR, GM, how are you doing, my friend?
Jam family.
How's it going, Jose? How are things in Brazil?
Ah, man. Things in Brazil are chill. It's raining outside.
Hmm.
I see dark clouds. You know that lazy day where you just want to, look at your fleets on
Sleep.
stage,
Yeah.
dream.
It's a good day to dive into some economic data, you know?
It is. It is the perfect day. Like everything's green, life is good. Chris is going to bring us the alpha about sage economy.
Yeah,
It's one of those days, one of those good days.
true, true. I see more people in the chat. Stick, GM, Earther, GM, my friend. Hope everything is well on your end, guys. I see Katir. Katir, how's it going, man? How's everything in Turkey? Did Turkey ban Discord or not?
Really? They
That's
banned Discord?
yeah, I think Turkey tried to ban Discord.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, I can't say much. Brazil banned Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. The world is acting in a weird way, just
Yeah, man, people banning communication channels, for me, it's
yeah,
super weird.
yeah. GM Karlikovic, Maurice Chaval. Is that good French? Just that you speak some French.
I'll abstain from commenting.
Oh my god. But yeah, good morning to everyone. I think we will be starting in like 1 or 2 minutes. We'll let some more people join, which is supposed to be the announcement. So we'll let some people join. Just Maurice Chaval is saying that was pretty accurate.
We have kind community members, bro.
uh, but yeah, I think we can start introducing the people who will be running the show today. Our
Yeah,
legendary economic team. We have
legends.
Chris, the Honey Badger, Chris Smith, our head of game econ. How are you doing, Chris?
Doing well, doing well. I'm always excited for the economic forum, so today's no different, especially with all the
Yeah.
fun stuff going on.
There's a lot of
Golden
moving
tickets.
pieces right now, right?
Yeah.
We have the golden tickets, we have the markets reacting.
Hmm.
There's a lot going on and more coming as well. More coming.
That
Yeah.
is very true, and we're going to talk about that.
Yes, sir. And we also have the Econ Ninja. Gareth, how are you doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. Econ Forum number 6. Unfortunately, I had to miss the last one, but excited to be back this month. As Chris said, a lot of exciting stuff happening. So hopefully, you guys enjoy what we have prepared for you today.
For sure. Very important event. I think, guys, you'll be getting some insights on what the economic team is looking at, things like local markets, golden tickets, so
RFRs. We have a
RFRs.
lot. We have a lot to cook over.
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil. But we'll be starting in like 2 minutes to let more people join. Let's give them 5 minutes. So in case more people join, I know Dominic Bain just posted the announcement like a minute or two ago. So I'm excited for this one. I think the econ forum is super important for anyone who is involved in Star Atlas, and especially if you're playing Sage. Like if you're playing Sage and you miss the econ forum,
What are you even doing?
what are you doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I see more people in the chat. I see Brian, GM Brian. Glad that you were able to make it. Quindar, Groove, GM Groove, Groove bringing in the jokes for sure. Oh man. All right. I think we can get this started. We have already like 40 people in the audience, so I'll let you guys run with it. Chris, Gareth, I don't know if you have the screen sharing permissions, but I don't want to spoil anything further. So I'll let you guys get started with this. Again, we'll probably interrupt in case we see any questions in the chat. So just so you guys know.
Sweet. Gareth, do you want to kick us off?
So, welcome everyone. This is the 6th monthly economic forum. Yeah, thanks for all you guys showing up today. We have a 3-part agenda here. We're going to talk about golden tickets, local markets, and then at the end we'll do a Q&A. So I will start us off here with the golden tickets. So as you guys know, at the start of this month, we kicked off the Golden Carnival, and that has seen caused a huge increase in activity. We can see at the top here that total golden tickets crafted has exceeded 3 million. Total users crafting is about 217. Total golden tickets purchased about 1.2 million, and total golden ticket purchasers, independent of crafters, is about 424 people. So it looks like right now there's going to be some competition in those initial drawing phases. But great to see this kind of activity. You can see below in the chart, we have a bar graph here showing the crafting per day. And even today on November 7th, today's November 7th. Today on November 7th, we've already surpassed the previous day. So as people reconfigure their crafting operations, those that want to optimize for golden tickets are definitely doing so as we get farther through the campaign. And for those of you that don't know, this lasts all the way until February, and loot pools will be changing all the time, every week. So if you want to get your crafters and your operations optimized for it, now is the best time to do it. Moving on here, we see a uptick in Starbase DAU since the start of the program. As you can see, we've been trending up quite consistently since the summer, but now you'll see this weird decrease in seasonality on the interday, and that's actually because we're seeing more people play more frequently as well. So less variability throughout the week, and we'll see if this trend continues. This is great for players. This is great for the market. Especially people playing more often. Chris, I'm sure you have a comment to make here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this just occurred to me because I was trying to figure out why did we lose our weekly cyclicality? We had this weekly cycle, and you can really see it around July, just after July, going into September. You kind of see that pattern where it spikes up and then it slowly goes down, and it spikes up again to a higher, and then it goes way down. And that super down day, I think it usually lies on a Saturday, I think. But basically, you can see a playing pattern. And I think that pattern emerges when things are very consistent, and you have this this schedule that you stick to, because there's only so much that you can get in a specific time period, and it's very consistent. So I know that I'm going to get this much LP every single day, and I'm going to be able to extract this much Atlas every single day with the LP system. I think we see that pattern break up with the release of RFRs, and we'll see how it progresses. But we've seen that pattern break up around the announcement of RFRs, because all of a sudden, golden tickets. Oh my God. We see that pattern break up because golden tickets are there's less consistency. It's not trickling out every single day, at some percentage. It's this big bombastic event that's going to culminate in a giant, in a giant prize distribution. So there's a lot more kind of hungriness in the community, or in the economy, to accumulate these tickets. So it's really interesting to see our retention rates for new players, or at least new profiles, has also spiked in the last couple of days to the highest that it's ever been in Sage. So I think what's happening is a lot of people are coming and sticking around, which is really cool. And they're just kind of trying to maximize their returns in this short time period. So we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, super cool stuff. As you can see, this trend is quite steep and has the opportunity to get steeper. So not only will we be looking at the new players and retention, but also in the aggregate, the sum total, hopefully continue to increase. Again, great for the market and in turn, great for players. So our next section here, we just take a look at sort of the preliminary impact on our Sage production. What this graph shows us is the percentage of daily crafted resources, specifically of resources that pertain to the golden ticket recipe. What percentage of them are being used towards golden ticket crafting? Now, as you can see, early days, there was a lot of just dumping of excess resource balances into golden ticket crafting. And you can see that's kind of dropped below 100%, but still remaining quite high, as you can see, as of the 5th. I believe that is particle accelerators are sticking right around 50%. So what that means is 50% of particle accelerators crafted are being used towards golden tickets. So we'll see these numbers sort of gain an equilibrium. But more community preferred weeks, we will see this spike. But yeah, super cool to see a new sink for these resources, especially for some that we noticed were gaining a lot in excess outstanding supply. So super cool to see here. And on average, across these resources, about 45% of these produced resources are being used to golden tickets, which is awesome. And this next slide, we see sort of a similar trend in resource usage translated into market price. So what this is that same group of resources that we just took a look at. Those are aggregated under being equal to the one group. And all other resources, all other raw resources, compounding components are in the zero group. As you can see in Atlas, these prices are increasing, which is honestly great, especially because Atlas is also increasing. So we're seeing an increase in Atlas value as well as an increase in resource prices in Atlas, which it points to an extremely strong market. November 1st was the date of the start of golden tickets. You can see a notable spike there in the beginning. Again, it's very early. We'll see if this trend continues. But yeah, in terms of looking at a metric like market cap, if we had it for the total market cap of resources, an increasing Atlas price plus an increasing price of resources in Atlas really spikes up that resource market cap, which is awesome. So another positive KPI there for the launch of golden tickets.
Guys, there's a question from Groove. I think it was on the previous slide to this one, but he's asking if we make any attempts to qualify a new profile as having some minimal amount or level of assets, or how do we qualify that?
It's a good question. Real quick before I answer that, I did want to also mention, we've also seen a huge spike in volume traded on the marketplace. Now that has, it's spiked up crazy high to well above what we had been averaging every day just in our resource market for Sage. We saw 4.5 million Atlas on November 2nd. We've since come down, but it's still well above our old mean. Now there is a cost to doing this, right? And the cost is that pulling the opening the faucet up is great, and that's always going to increase engagement, increase yield for players, and get people excited, increase the volume on the marketplace, all sorts of good stuff. But there's obviously a balancing act that we need to make sure that we're keeping to, and it's that we can't be too. You can almost think of like the optimal economic emission rate is almost like an interest rate or an inflation rate, and you want it to be like you don't necessarily need it or want it to be zero, but you do need it to be not crazy high because that has negative consequences. Anyway, so it's really cool to see the immediate impact on the market of these golden ticket recipes. Appreciating the fact that we can't just do this all the time or max it, just like, oh, let's do it 2x. It worked this way. Let's do 2x, 3x. But yeah, definitely really cool to see the reaction. It's been so strong and so positive. Now, yeah, DAU, that's an easier question real quick. Daily active users, that's just measured as the number of profiles that interact with the Sage program on a given day. So if you warp, if you move cargo, if you mine, if you do any of the main actions, that counts. You do not count as a daily active user if you are trading assets. So if you're trading on the marketplace, let's say you're trading titanium or like power sources, you do not count as a Sage daily active user. Now, once we have local markets, you will count as daily active user. But that is a discussion we can get into at a later time. With respect to new profiles, this is really quite simple. If you're a profile that was created on the day, you count as a new profile. Now, we have a consistent anywhere from 10 to 20 new profiles that show up in the game every single day. And only some of those are actually retained. Now, I assume that some of those new profiles could be bots. Some of those new profiles could be players churning or users churning from their old wallet to a new wallet, something like that. Just making sure that they're, up to date and secure. I don't really know exactly what that looks like. We've never gotten too granular with it, just because there's so much other stuff that we want to research before we research that. But yeah, a profile is new if it did not exist yesterday and it exists today. And then we have reactivations, which we count as somebody who was inactive for N days and then they became active. So if somebody showed up today and the last time they showed up was 30 days ago, that would be somebody who is considered reactivated 30-day. And then daily actives I explained, and then one of the other measures we care about is retention. And this is basically if you were a new profile on day 1, did you show up on day 2? And did you show up on day 7? And did you show up on day 30? Those are the retention rates we care about. We have seen retention of our new players spike since the golden ticket launch. And we've also seen people just showing up more often. So if somebody shows up let's say that people show up on average 3 out of 7 days of the week, we've seen that increase since the launch of the golden tickets. So just a few user acquisition, like KPI metrics there. And then Katir says, can MP bots reach local markets? What's an MP bot?
The trading bots in the marketplace.
Oh, can a market bot reach local markets? Yes. But there's going to be a couple of quality of life improvements for local markets that will hopefully help to alleviate some of this issue. But yeah, there's no reason that somebody couldn't write a bot that would interact with the blockchain programs that allow somebody to post a market market sell, a market buy. The critical thing is that you have to physically move that stuff if you want to be able to extract it or do anything with it. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Liquidity is going to be a very, very big thing because you're going to have markets that are extremely distant. They're going to have very, very low liquidity markets for certain assets, especially assets that are a great distance away. So it'd be very interesting to see how that'll play out. All right. Well,
You ready to move into the next segment, Chris?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. And I'll when there's a few like transitions, but I'll let you know when to click, Gareth.
Sure.
Okay, so local markets. So obviously golden tickets, very exciting. This is really cool. Like we're seeing a lot of good stuff. We're seeing prices go up. We're seeing volume go up. We're seeing users go up. Everything is going up. Again, we have to be sensitive to the fact that all of this upward motion comes at potential cost. There is risk associated with doing this kinds of stuff. That said, as long as this growth is met with the appropriate user acquisition, we should be fine. I like to think of an economy as being a big giant pie that's divided across a bunch of different people. An economy with one person and one pie is not that interesting, and it's effectively a zero price economy. The second you add a second person, third person, fourth person, it becomes much, much more interesting. So what is going on in the economy this year is obviously golden tickets are a whole entire new earning mechanism in addition to LP. And I will kind of touch on LP at the end of this slide because I do want to address LP. The success and lack of success, the wins and the losses I think that we have gotten from LP. But what we're doing at Star Atlas, in Sage, is we're creating a multifaceted economy where there are multiple ways to interact with the production and consumption of the economy, and there are multiple ways to interact with the game, and just basically creating a variety of ways to earn Atlas in the game, or to earn arbitrage, or to earn margin, or whatever you want to call it. However you decide to earn is how you decide to earn. Believe it or not everybody participates in LP. People sometimes make their money in different ways interacting in the game economy. Some people are just making their money arbitraging. Some people are making their money by just selling directly into the marketplace. So there's this expansion of features, golden tickets, this expansion of features in local markets and RFRs. This is obviously it's adding variety and interest and intrigue into the economy, but it's also providing new ways to play the game. So what I've done here is I've outlined two paths to growth that local markets and RFRs will provide us. And one is marketplace volume increase, and the other is career expansion, I call it. So I want to talk about marketplace volume increasing and the impacts that that's going to have on the rest of the ecosystem. So why would marketplace volume increase in the first place when we introduce local markets and RFRs? So RFRs are one thing, local markets are another thing. Let's just look at local markets for now, and let's just think about what is a local market doing for us. A local market will necessarily, there's almost kind of a mathematical principle here that will increase volume on the marketplace. And this is for two reasons. It's twofold. The first reason that marketplace volume will increase when we introduce local markets is OTC trading will almost assuredly decrease. And this is because there is a cost. There's both a literal cost of transaction fees that you pay to the Solana blockchain and fuel costs that you pay to the game in order to move your stuff around. There's a literal cost, and then there's also the opportunity cost of time. When I extract resources from the game, it costs me time and it costs me resources and money. So when we eliminate this cost, when we eliminate this friction, what we're doing is we're naturally forcing people, or at least encouraging people on the margin, to stay in the game. Now, there might be some people for whom it is still worthwhile to exit the game and pull their resources out and do OTC trade. But for the most part, we're encouraging people to stay put because of this opportunity cost and because of the actual literal costs associated with moving resources. So all of a sudden, we're going to have this increase in marketplace volume that could range anywhere from 10 to 100% just because of reducing OTC trading. Now, OTC trading is a really cool phenomenon, and it really, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it sucks for us, but it just goes to show how powerful the economy is. The fact that people want to do it is a really cool thing. Not good for our bottom line ultimately, and we want to encourage people to do trade inside of the game. But OTC whatever. That trade will start to happen more often in the game because of the costs associated with bringing it out. So people are avoiding this 4 to 6% fee when they do OTC trading. Now it's going to, all of a sudden it's like, well, I could trade in game and I save 30%, not just 6%. So it becomes more profitable for them to trade in the game as opposed to outside of the game OTC. So that is how we're going to increase volume. The other component here is...
And Chris, just really quick, not to interrupt you, but also the Atlas Locker fees apply, right? Like the discounts to the local market.
Yes, the Atlas Locker fees will apply to the local markets just as they do to the galactic market. And this is, I mentioned opportunity cost. So we'll obviously have all of a sudden a bunch of OTC people will start to trade in the game. That's my strong feeling. Not even a feeling. It just seems it would be incredible to me if we did not see a profit maximizing move towards the local markets as opposed to OTC. And okay, so that's kind of the first component. But then we'll also just see a natural increase in the volume on the marketplace, not even accounting for OTC, because all of a sudden there's a lower cost to enter the market. It used to be that there were opportunity costs associated with moving stuff outside of the market. So all of a sudden, if I can just sell it at the local Starbase that I'm at, I'm going to do that instead of trying to get it out. So you ended up in this situation. Probably there was this type of player, this marginal player, who didn't participate in the marketplace, or at least participated less than they would have if the frictions were lowered. So now that we're reducing friction to trade, we are going to naturally see volume increase. So I anticipate a significant increase in volume, potentially 10 to 50% increase in volume. Okay, that's why marketplace volume is going to increase. This is going to lead to a whole bunch of great stuff. Automata Runway, all of a sudden we could see our secondary revenue fees increase 20, 30, 50, 100% potentially, just from that volume increase alone. The Star Atlas GDP is going to increase. The DAO is going to start receiving more fees from volume. And when the GDP increases in the economy, we're going to see average income increase per player. We're going to see average income increase per player for other reasons associated with RFRs. I'll kind of talk about that later in the career section. But we're going to see average income increase because GDP is increasing. There's more volume happening in the economy. There's more volume happening locally. This increase in GDP, this increase in income, average income, is going to increase it should increase user growth. As the game becomes more profitable, people are going to join the game. They're going to be more interested. We know that there is an extremely explicit relationship between profitability, margins, and player growth, player acquisition. Players who basically become dormant because it's not effective for them to play the game. All of a sudden, every single time Atlas goes up 2%, 3%, there are more players who come back into the game because it's become profitable again. So this is going to lead to user growth, which is going to lead to more volume, which is going to lead to user growth, which is going to lead to more volume, et cetera, et cetera. It's a nice virtuous cycle. The other component here, so there's the market volume that's going to lead to user growth. And ultimately, we need user growth. Now, you might be saying, oh, geez, with this LP system, user growth isn't even that good because then I've got more people competing for my Atlas. Well, that's where RFRs come in. Obviously, there are going to be a bunch of career opportunities with local markets, but RFRs introduce something else that's interesting. So let's jump into this career expansion idea. So there's obviously going to be the freighting concept. You're going to pick something up from point A, you're going to move it to point B for some sort of premium. Let's say that the thing costs X at point A, and it costs, to get it to point B, it's going to cost X plus delta. And these freighters are going to be extracting delta. The more costly it is to transport stuff, the more expensive that transportation cost is, the higher the prices, the higher the wages for freighters will become. So as the conflict and friction increases in the game to transport stuff, freighting is going to become a more lucrative career. Lucrative careers lead to user growth. This is going to lead to, so we're going to have freighting. We're going to have intertemporal arbitrage, which is not really something we have so much right now, but you can imagine with the ability for people to move assets around in massive quantities, especially whales, you can imagine that the prices of a specific local starbase could fluctuate greatly within a week or a couple of days. So let's say you buy something because you anticipate that somebody is going to, let's say that you think that somebody's going to move a massive amount of power sources, and you say, okay, I'm going to either make a sell. I think they're going to move from the starbase, and the prices are going to go up because of the lack of supply. So I'm going to buy up as much as I can. All of a sudden, a whale brings away those power sources to another starbase. Some freighter reduces the amount of those power sources. The price goes up, and you're able to arbitrage that in an intertemporal sense. So from time period to time period. That's something we don't really have right now. Yeah, you can buy and hold and hope that the price goes up, but there's not really any interplay there. So this is really cool because now there's an interplay between movement of resources and the price of resources at a local starbase, hence intertemporal arbitrage. We're also obviously going to have the RFR production career. So this is going to be an opportunity for people to produce RFRs. And the really cool thing about RFRs, there's a bunch of interesting things that come from RFRs. But the main one is that it's going to be uncapped emissions again. Now, there's still a theoretical cap, but in terms of the exact quantity that's produced every day, that is now uncapped. LP emissions have led to capped Atlas emissions, which is desirable, but it has desirable effects and it has undesirable effects. And I'll talk about those later. But RFRs introduce a production loop that is now equal to the amount of input that you put in. If I put in X amount of input, I'm going to get Y output. If I put 2X input, I'm going to get 2X output. And that's an essential thing when it comes to increasing average income in the game. So this uncapped emissions is going to be our biggest contributor to average income increasing, supposing that prices stay stable. Okay, so ceteris paribus, we'll have increased average income in the game, and this average income increase, as you saw in the previous point, is going to lead to user growth. And user growth is going to lead to, obviously, this nice virtuous cycle. More volume, more people, more growth, more volume, more people, more growth. So that's kind of the two big, you could call them macroeconomic things. I also have a plot over here. Gareth, could you click once? I have a plot over here where I've plotted supply and demand. You can see price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis. And what we're going to see initially, and we've already actually seen this. I was talking about the massive spike in volume, trade volume, and Gareth, I don't know, did we show them the increase in prices? Yeah, we saw an increase in price for these assets. So what's going to happen to the golden tickets, and this is also going to happen when we reintroduce RFRs, we're going to see a spike in the price in the short run because demand has increased, because margins have increased. All of a sudden, there's more hunger for these resources because there's more people who demand them at every single price point. So this will be a shift in demand, not just a move across the demand curve, a shift in the demand curve to the right. Anytime we have an increase in players, we're going to see a shift in the demand curve to the right. We've already seen this price increase happen. So this isn't financial advice. This is just a fact. It's something that's already happened. Now, this greater return leads to an increase in demand, which increases prices. This is natural. So you can see that dotted line, which is the equilibrium price. We're going to see that price go up to the new equilibrium price. Now, Gareth, if you click one more time, we're going to see a long-term effect, which is the supply curve the long-term supply is going to interact, or is eventually going to catch up to this. Because there's this price opportunity, because there's this greater return, we're also going to see people come in order to fill that demand, in order to, we're going to see the supply curve shift for a number of reasons. The first one is more people are going to be entering the economy. The second one is there's going to be this increase in price. That's going to lead people to want to take advantage of higher prices. So they're going to start supplying the resources. So this is going to shift supply out to the right again, which is going to lead us to the same equilibrium prices. But you'll notice on the x-axis here, we've moved from a lower quantity to a higher quantity. And that goes back to this idea of volume increasing, GDP increasing. As we shift these two curves out in the long term, we're just going to see Q constantly increasing. Price should hopefully stay stable in the long run. So that's kind of the impact that we should expect in terms of the prices, in terms of the markets. Kind of a little Econ 101 lesson there. Gareth, if you click one more time. So I did want to just get into a brief discussion before we go to the Q&A, because I'm sure there's a lot. I already see a couple of questions in the chat, but I did want to just kind of address this idea of LP. I think a lot of people could look at the LP program. You look at our KPIs, you look at Starbase, you look at sentiment. We have a whole bunch of different KPIs we can look at, and it looks like everything kind of goes down when we released LP. Now, that was for a number of reasons. The primary one and the biggest driver is Atlas price. That was decreased players' profitability, and it decreased the daily active users in our game because more and more players were underwater. Now, as the price goes back up, we're starting to see more and more players enter. So what was wrong? What was good about LP? LP was stable. It provided steady income. It was the first time that we had kind of a consistent, very in-game way to earn Atlas versus RFRs, which felt a little bit out of game. You had to extract the RFRs, and then you had to go to the marketplace and sell them. So LP was the first time we had Atlas emissions embedded into the game. So there were a bunch of good things about LP. what are the not so good things about LP? Well, one of them has to do with this idea of user retention, or sorry, user acquisition. If I know that adding another player to my player base is going to decrease my cut of the Atlas emissions, I'm less incentivized to grow the player base. And in fact, I'm more incentivized to like do the opposite, right? So LP had this kind of negative, I would say, stigma because of this. Now, we are very happy that LP is in the game, and I'm super excited about having multiple mechanics in the game that allow players to profit. RFRs, golden tickets, and LP are going to marry. They're going to be this nice trifecta, this multiple different ways to churn through the economy. LP is going to play a very, very critical role, especially when when we have combat systems and stuff come online. LP is going to become very important when conquest becomes a thing. But we need this ability for the economy to grow with the player base, and that's where RFRs are going to come in. So I'm really excited about the interplay between RFRs and LP and how they're going to kind of there's going to be like this price of LP, almost like the value of LP. People are going to start doing actions that contribute to LP more so than RFRs, and then they're going to switch to RFRs. So LP is very much a system that is in the game. It's staying in the game, and it's going to have a nice interplay with these other mechanics as they come online. So I did want to just address that. Yeah.
There was a question regarding LP. About the impact of LP with the goal. If the number of LP participants has been impacted by the golden tickets release.
Okay, let me see where that one is.
It's you have to scroll up a lot. Group posted it.
Is it before Katir's question?
I can't even find it right now. Group, can you repost it? But yeah, it was basically if there is an impact of the number of LP participants after golden tickets.
I see a question about Evi predicting 200 profiles that have earned LP today. That definitely sounds about right. We do have historic data on how many LP extractors there are, so that's definitely something we have. Have the number of LP participants impacted by golden tickets? Not that I'm aware. I could look more deeply into it. My hope is that the number, it could be the case that we see a dip to LP participants, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it stay stable, because there's still a ton of Atlas to be had, right? Like, it wouldn't be logical for the player base to abandon LP because the Atlas emissions are fixed. So what we're going to end up with is this interplay between going and producing golden tickets until LP is more profitable, and then you're going to produce LP until golden tickets are more profitable, and there's just going to be kind of this balance, because there's a price of LP and there's a price of a golden ticket, and each one of those has kind of this earnings rate, this intertemporal earnings rate, like, my hourly earnings producing GTs versus my hourly earnings producing LP. So there's going to be this interplay. It's possible that we do see LP participation drop a little bit, but I think we'll probably end up in a situation where it's stable. At the very least, maybe it'll drop and then it'll become stable. But I would be surprised if it dropped at all in the long run. That's something I could probably check pretty easily if I have the code up, which I don't think I do. Let me see. Actually, users per day. Okay, cool. We have not really seen a significant drop. So users per day typically floats around that 200 mark. So let me just this is way too. I can't share my screen because there's stuff on the screen that I can't share with you guys. But yeah, I mean, so October 18th, we saw a spike to 303. That was our top number of users that got Atlas on the day. And I just assume that if you got Atlas on the day, you also contributed LP because it's auto redemption. Yeah, Rusty Spork is like, they want the secrets. So on the 18th, we saw it spike to 303, and then we saw it drop significantly over the next several days down to 197. And since October 23rd, when we had that bottom at 197, we've seen it slowly climbing. On November 4th, we had 270 users. On November 6th, we had 211. So definitely seems like there's been an impact. I would have to say it's too early to tell what the impact has been. GTs were released on what, November? When were GTs released? November 1st?
November 1st, yep.
November 1st. So hard to say like what the impact has been thus far. I would say like in the very, very short term, we've actually seen kind of an uptick. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that develops over time. I would say there's no substantial impact thus far. How often will regional RFR recipes change? So that's still kind of a big TBD. Probably what it'll end up being is how often can I convince the engineers to drop an update. But I would like to, so to give you guys kind of an intimate look into what the next month is going to look like for me, we've been just completely, we're kind of in the Q&A section, Gareth, so if you want to just go to the next
fair
one.
enough.
So we've been swamped between data analytics and between design for local markets and for the next update that's coming out next year for Sage. We've just been absolutely hammered. So we're trying to get as much done as we can. My next big task is to develop. I want to develop an algorithm that populates RFR recipes. Now, if there's a singular RFR recipe across the galaxy, this is not that big of a challenge. It's basically just like, hey, make sure it's balanced with the amount of Atlas emissions that we want to have. And that's kind of trivial. But if we want to have geographical discrepancies, which I really, really want that, we're going to have to put some more heavy thought into how we do this algorithm. The first recipe, I can probably assure you, is going to be bespoke. It's going to be kind of crafted by hand based on like current production rates and current burn rates and stuff like this. It'll also need to be in tandem with the golden ticket recipe, etc. So probably going to launch local markets with I say probably, there's a 99.5% chance that we're going to launch local markets with, obviously RFRs will launch in tandem with local markets. What we're going to end up doing is a singular recipe across the whole galaxy to start, just because obviously we don't want to we don't want to have too dramatic of a change pre local market. Like if we're introducing local markets for the first time, we don't want to have local RFRs quite yet. Like we want to kind of do it in chunks. So we'll start with a single recipe. It'll be available to craft at, right now we're thinking a 50-50 split, but we might do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And how this is going to work is 50% of Starbases will have the RFR recipe craftable, and then 50% of Starbases will have the RFR for purchase from the DAO. So that means that you can't sell it at the same place you craft it. One additional thing I'm thinking about doing is that 1/3, 1/3, where 1/3 of the Starbases have the recipe, 1/3 of the Starbases do not have the recipe, but have the purchase order, and then 1/3 have neither. So that's kind of where my thought process is in terms of the geographic split. And then, with respect to the recipe, it'll be balanced to account for LP recipes as well as golden ticket recipes and current kind of production. But yeah, definitely want to get to a place where we have an algorithm that spits out the recipes for us. That's where I would love to be able to get to, and then have some sort of a process where we update it every 1 week or 2 weeks or something like that. Okay, let's see. Can you share how much decrease LP rewards? So that is basically going to be, that's going to be a direct relationship with how much Atlas we think we're going to emit from RFRs. So right now, the current emissions in Sage per day for Atlas are floating around like I would say 7 million, between 6 and 7 million. Let's say we project that there will be 5 million Atlas emitted from RFRs per day. We're probably going to want to decrease LP emissions by a proportional amount. So if we anticipate there will be 5 million additional Atlas emitted per day, we're going to decrease LP emissions probably by that amount. Now, that's going to come with it some significant challenges and some significant consequences. We'll probably want to go for more of a 50-50 split. So right now, let's say we're averaging 7 million every single day. We probably want emissions from RFRs to be about 3.5 million. And then we'll reduce Atlas emissions for LP down to 3.5 million as well. It would not surprise me if we saw an increase in Atlas emissions overall, which I'm not too terribly worried about. We still have plenty of runway when it comes to the Atlas emissions curve. And it will probably slowly creep up over time because, again, RFRs will grow with the player base. If we have more players entering the game with more ships, with new resources, with new assets, that's going to increase the Atlas emissions. And that's kind of okay as far as I'm concerned. And we'll still have this LP system that's hopefully balancing. So it's going to be a fine balancing act. Just a bunch of questions.
Should I read them to you, Chris? One by one?
Sure.
There's a question about the SDU mining that Java MBG Buzzer is saying SDU mining right now is not interesting. High transactions price and low APY.
Yeah.
He's just asking for a comment, I guess, if you have one.
Yeah, I mean, so there are definitely improvements that could be made to the SDU system. There is no doubt about that. And I would love to be able to make an update, but I don't know if that's something that's in the works or is possible. I will say if we do end up putting an SDU in the RFR recipe, which is certainly something we're kind of entertaining, that will help with the APY of SDUs. Yeah, I think with the fixed Atlas emissions of LP and the random probability of SDUs, that's kind of it puts us in a situation where it's not the highest APY asset by any stretch of the imagination. But I think if we were to increase the utility of SDUs, we could fix that problem. So very good chance that there's going to be SDUs in the RFR recipe, to be honest with you.
Cool.
But yeah, in terms of like making it more interesting, not in the short term.
All right. There's one from Ager. Have you run any scenarios on the speed of Starbase's upgrades with introduction of local markets? And if that will increase? Are RFRs going to provide the stopgap between Starbases being completely upgraded and the next game module that provides a resource sink?
Yeah, so that is kind of where next year comes into play. We need Starbase utility, and we need some sort of destruction mechanic, and I won't comment on that stuff right now. But there's definitely something we're going to have a shakeup once the RFRs are introduced, and we're probably already seeing the shakeup with GTs. I would guess that contribution of Starbase upgrading materials has dropped, and I can actually look at that right now. So definitely upkeep has dropped in the last few days. Upgrading materials have dropped significantly in the last few days, especially with respect to our SDUs. SDUs in particular. It looks like contribution of upgrading materials has not really taken a hit, actually. That's kind of surprising to me. But yeah, I anticipate once we release RFRs, especially if there's a significant tug between LP, do I contribute this to LP or do I contribute this to producing an RFR? We should see LP contributions, Starbase contributions decrease. And if we see Starbase contributions decrease, we'll see Starbase upgrading decrease, which will definitely extend the timer there.
Cool. Brian is pinging me because he wants more questions to be read, so I got him. Chris, has there been any additional work on increasing profitability for smaller fleets, mostly due to transaction fees?
Yeah.
Groove and I have spent a lot of time analyzing smaller fleets, and it generally ends up with me, Brian, saying spend $1,000 so you can have a full fleet to maximize transaction fees. The question continues, but I know you had a comment.
No, yeah, I mean, you can feel free to finish the question. I have thoughts.
Okay, so for example, we know the miners are significantly more attractive fee-wise because they don't use ammo, thus no ammo loading transactions. So curious if there are any gameplay changes coming that might address this.
Now, not to give like a generic useless response, but the number one thing that we can do for in-game profitability is the price of Atlas needs to go up relative to the price of Solana, of Sol. If that happens, that helps with this small player profitability issue, because all of a sudden the relative value of an Atlas that you're getting in the game is greater than the relative value that you're paying in Sol fees. There's a lot of big picture stuff that we have thought about and that we've thrown around with respect to the fees themselves. But the reality is, the way to help smaller players, there are two different big ways we can help smaller players. We can, if you think about the problem with the smaller players, is that they're paying this fixed cost. So you've got like revenue minus fixed costs. One way that we can do it is by increasing revenue. And that goes back to that Atlas idea. Like, okay, if the value of the stuff you're producing goes up, then it's going to outsize that fixed cost. And this goes back to my idea, this concept of like user growth increases with the Atlas price. And this is because it becomes more profitable for players to play in the game. There's this margin of players at any given time of 10 to 15% of our player base that are basically underwater. And if the price goes up by 10%, all of a sudden they're not underwater anymore and they're able to make a profit. So with that, so we've got this revenue side, but then we've got the cost side. How do we reduce the fixed cost? There are a number of different ways we can reduce the fixed cost. One of those is to introduce gameplay mechanics that use fewer transactions and less rent. So there are definitely ideas on how we can try to help with this, and like, you know, it involves design work, and it involves getting those gameplay mechanics out. In the immediate term, other than something like literally having the DAO pay for some pre-specified amount of those fees per day, there's not a ton that we can do other than hopefully making it such that players are like, STUs are an interesting one. I don't know what the average STU cooldown period is, but it's probably like 3 minutes or something like that. So I would imagine STUs are probably less profitable for small players than something like mining. But mining sucks because you can't go very far with a small ship. So in the immediate term, I don't know. I don't really think that there's anything immediately that can be done other than getting new mechanics in, or having the DAO cover some portion of Atlas fees, of fees that players take on, either through rent, maybe paying for rental accounts, or paying for transaction costs. So
yeah.
The
rent account is always the one that is the most painful from what I see in the community, especially because the newbies, let's say the people who are not familiar with Solana, they think that's going to be the price of all the transactions that they pay moving forward, and that makes them get out,
Yeah. All right, let's do one more question, just because we're kind of coming up on the timer here. Addressing particle accelerators, LPROs, they are currently worse than frameworks. As a top tier component, they are currently 50% full for 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, this just goes back to LP balancing. This is probably something that we should have more aggressively pursued, but the reality is, like, it's me and Gareth. Like, I wish we could like expand our team to 10 people, but there's limited resources. So this is probably just comes down to a resource constraint. There are LP imbalances. There are issues with SDUs. There's issues with particle accelerators. We're aware of those issues. We're hoping with local markets that'll shake things up significantly, and I really hope that the RFR system will significantly change the landscape. So I'm hesitant to spend a lot of time right now reworking LP balance, just because we've got so much stuff going on that's going to release and change all of that. So I hear you. I definitely agree, but it's just kind of a balancing act in terms of our priorities.
I saw one comment from someone that I am definitely not familiar with, but someone said that running a validator could help alleviate the transaction fees. I don't know. Again, I have no experience running validators or anything like that, or if it could even have a direct impact. But I just felt like bringing it up.
I've heard of this idea. Basically, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not like a expert on like validators and stuff, but the idea would be that Automata would run our own validator and charge 0 fees in order to do that. That's something we thought about. I can't remember why, but the engineers basically said it was not feasible right now. I don't know if it would become feasible in the future. Yeah, I mean, it would be something we would still effectively have to pay for it, and then at that stage, it's like, okay, well, why wouldn't we just like pay the fees directly? So, is the whole point of running a validator, right? Is to get a cut. So it would be a cost center. We would be paying those fees out of pocket effectively anyway. So it's like, okay, why wouldn't we just pay them directly instead of creating this validator that potentially has a whole bunch of other issues that comes with it. So
someone needs to run it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's costs associated with running exactly. It's costly to run, and if you're not making any profit because you're charging 0, there's also this may have been the issue that the engineers pointed out, but it's difficult to limit the people who can interact with the validator. I'm not sure. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. But I remember there being this issue. It's like, okay, well, if there's a free validator, everybody's going to want to access that. Again,
Right.
not an expert, so.
Yeah, it happened when we had the RPCs. It was a mess. So we had to gate it. But yeah, that's a different story. Just one more comment, Chris. I see Samsor saying, please think about the faction hoppers if regional RFRs are going to take away from LP rewards because they could exploit it. Just bringing that up.
So assuming the RFRs are, let's assume that the margin or the profitability of the RFRs are equal across factions. There should be a uniform decrease in the LP produced by factions. I guess trying to figure out what you're getting at, Samsor. Is it that there would be some disproportionate unproduction or disproduction or deproduction of LP assets? I don't know. It seems like it would be a uniform across the entire thing. Bohemian says, why wasn't the LP system temporary? Actually, no, it was like permanent. It was more permanent than RFRs, but that's a whole different thing. Cool. All right, probably should call it there.
Samsung just replied, let's say I make too many RAs that I can't install. I send my access to mod to redeem RFRs and lower their LP rewards.
So if I send my access to mod to redeem RFRs for radiation absorbers, I produce too many, I go send them. Why would that lower their LP rewards? There wouldn't be. Okay, maybe there was a misunderstanding with respect to RFRs. Like, we're not literally going to take. We're not gonna algorithmically reduce LP rewards based on RFR production. That's not how this is going to work. We're going to just balance it such that, supposing that we have an estimated X amount of Atlas that would be produced by RFRs, we're going to kind of, as a rule of thumb, reduce LP emissions, fixed emissions, by that amount. So it's not that producing one or the other is going to take from the other one. If you produce more RFRs, that's not going to reduce LP. We're just going to have a fixed amount that we're going to reduce LP by to account for the increase in RFR emissions. So it's not one-to-one like this. Yeah, good, really good point to bring up in clarification.
Cool. I think we're good to close, Chris.
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you so much again for your time and for all the insights that you provide. I'm sure everyone playing Sage or just keeping up with Star Atlas finds this super valuable. So really appreciate it, Chris and Gareth. Really appreciate your time, guys. I'll let you, Chris, share any closing thoughts before we leave here.
No, none from me. I think I'm just really excited for local markets to come out. I hope it happens sooner than we think. So we'll see.
4 to 6.
Yeah.
No way.
Awesome.
It's
It's an actual 4 to 6.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Gareth, for the analysis as well. I'll see you guys around.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
one.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your time here, and I appreciate everyone in the audience. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.